All right, so here's the deal. A well-designed email marketing strategy has the potential to 4 to 6x the bottom line revenue for your company. And what we are going to do today is I'm going to show you exactly how you need to be doing this, exactly how you need to construct your strategy and your sequences and the types of sequences, as well as the different types of emails that we use. And I'm going to show you some examples of that stuff as well so that you guys can have access to that. And I will tell you that I'm going to show you some examples, but I can't read all of the emails to you. And so if this is something that really interests you and you want to go deep on this, I've left a link underneath this live training where you can go and just subscribe to my email list, and you can see exactly how I do it every day. And it's going to make a lot of sense to you after going through this live training and then seeing me produce the emails every day. And you're like, oh, I see that. That's a bonding email. Oh yeah, he's in a pre-framing sequence, which we'll talk about later. But this is not going to be what you typically see on most YouTube videos. I consider doing this as like a 15-minute sort of like, pre-recorded thing with a lot of flashy graphics and stuff. But I do email marketing very differently than most people. And once you see how I do it, you're going to recognize, number one, is that a lot of the information that you've been fed about email marketing is just simply wrong. And secondly, you're going to see how this is going to be so much more effective than what you have been doing. But I am also going to get into the weeds on this. This is not surface level stuff. So if you're one of those kind of surface level people who just wants information that you're not going to apply, this is not for you. Just leave now. Okay. We're going to get thick into this stuff, and I'm going to take my time to really try and teach you the why and the how. Okay. So I've broken it up into 3 parts. Part 1 is I'm going to show you why email is really still important for your business. Number 2, I'm going to break down the 4 different types of email sequences and show you some examples of those. And then last but not least is I'm going to reveal my personality-driven email process that up until this point has generated me somewhere in the neighborhood of $20 to $30 million online. Okay. I sell exclusively through email. I do not sell through any of this other stuff that you see in any of these other types of mechanisms, direct DM stuff. And I would say 98% of that money, that $20 to $30 million that I've made over the last 16 years, 98% of it came from email. The other 2% comes from videos like this, where there's a link in the description where you can go and schedule a time to talk to me if you really want my help. And I do make a lot of money. I do make a chunk of money off of that, but the vast majority of it is email related. And the one thing that I want you all to remember is the money is in the list. This is one of the first pieces of advice, or I guess first knowledge chunks that I got when I started in my business 16 years ago. And it is just as valuable and just as applicable today as it was back then. The bigger your list and the healthier the list, the more money you will make. And if you want to have an idea of just how much you can expect to make or should expect to make from a healthy email list, right now, the only metric that I use in my business to tell how well I'm doing and what the health of my email list and the health of my business is just really one metric. It's value per lead per month. Okay. And so let's say you have an email list of 10,000 people, or let's just use 1,000 because most of the people watching this don't have 10,000 person email lists. Let's say you have 1,000 people on your email list. That email list should be worth, if it's a healthy list, somewhere between $1 and $4 per month. Okay. And so I don't do this every month, but I do it every quarter. Every quarter I come in and I take a look at how many leads I have on my email list. And then I divide that out by the number, the amount of money I've made over the last quarter, and then what that equals out to per month. And it should be somewhere between $1 and $4. So if you have 1,000 people on your email list, that should be making you between $1,000 and $4,000. The math is real simple. If you've got 10,000, you can imagine, 10,000 is $10,000 to $40,000 per month. When I was running a trading education business about 8 years ago, we had a revolving list, a healthy list, because we would clean the list out every 90 days. We had a list of about 40,000 people. Okay. And that list generated us between 3 to 5 million a year. Okay. just to give you some idea of what you can do with this. Now, every once in a while, every few years, it seems like you get this group of people, and it tends to be when some kind of new technology comes out, is you get these folks who say, oh, email is dead, right? Now it's all direct messaging, or now it's all LinkedIn communications, or now it's all some other type of funnel system that they've got out there, or now we're on to some different paid marketing strategy, okay? Email is not dead. Email is still, pound for pound, the most reliable and most profitable way for you to generate sales for your business. And I'll give you an example. Right now, and this is the average, right? So some are a little lower, some's a little higher, but the average ROI is 36 to 1. That means for every dollar that you invest in email marketing, it returns $36 on average. If you are crushing it you see all these people claiming that they're getting like 5x ROI on their paid ad strategy. Most of that is coming months or years in the future, right? In reality, if you're getting a 2 to 1 return on your ad spend for, say, Facebook or Instagram marketing, you're crushing it. Like, you're literally crushing it. The holy grail of paid marketing is being able to invest $1 and get $1 back within, say, the first 30 days. Okay. But the bigger reason that email is such a powerful tool, and one of the reasons why it continues to maintain it, is not just because it's cheap to do, but it's because of something we call long tail conversions. So if I come back over here and I show this to you, what you're looking at the bottom there is the number of days that someone has joined your email list. And that first 0 to 90 days is in blue, and we call that the short head. So that's the easy money. That's the money that we're just scraping off the top from people who are desperate and absolutely ready to buy now. The rest of it, from 90 days on to 180, 240, off on into affinity, that's your long tail conversions, okay? And long tail conversions not only account for a larger percentage of the sales, so as you can see from that diagram, but they also account for the higher ticket sales. Because most of the time, most of the people that you're going to run into are not going to be ready to buy now. And that's because of some changes that have happened to the way that we buy stuff. We don't buy things the way we used to pre-internet. And it has something to do with what's called the 7-11-4 rule, okay? And this comes actually from Google. They did a big 2-year study, 2 billion different data points, something like that. They looked it up, and they said for someone to purchase from you, to effectively convert a prospect into a customer, brands need to have 7 hours of content, okay? 7 hours of engagement of something, YouTube videos, email copy, blog posts that they read. They need to consume 7 hours of time with you across 11 different touch points. So they can't just consume 7 hours in one sitting. It needs to happen over a series of 11 different encounters. And it needs to be from 4 distinct locations. So maybe they read a blog post from you, they watched a YouTube video, they've been on your email list for a couple of months until they built up and they have achieved that 7-11-4. And they said, the way that we actually buy now is different than the way we used to before the internet. They said the way we do it today is at some point there is a trigger event. And that trigger event is when, let's say you find out that you're pregnant. And now you and your wife that's the trigger event. Now a series of things start to happen after that. One of them might be you're going to go start looking for a baby stroller or a baby crib, right? And what's the first thing that we do now? Well, we ask some friends and family, hey, what crib do you have? If you've got some other friends who have some kids, what do you recommend? Which ones do we stay away from? But we go out onto the internet and we enter into this exploration and evaluation loop, okay, where we're looking at a whole bunch of different options, okay? And we might come up with, let's say we're looking at strollers and we come up with maybe 6 different brands. And we're going to watch a bunch of YouTube videos on it. We're going to watch some reviews, and we're going to go and read the reviews on Amazon, and we're going to do all of this stuff. And over a period of time through that exploration and evaluation phase, we're going to limit it to maybe 3. And now we're going to go in and kind of hone in. And now we go back and we look again and we evaluate again. And we make decision based on that of which ones we're going to eliminate in the same evaluation process until we finally settle on the one that we're going to purchase. Now, I work with coaches and consultants. This works exactly the same way for us, is that at some point there's a trigger event. Let's say we realize I had a client a while ago who the way that they were generating revenue for their coaching business just dried up. It had to do with some government contracts and some requirements by law that people had to have specific kinds of training every year. And then the government removed that obligation. So guess what? All that money dried up. And so now they had to go back into the process and start looking at, okay, how do we reevaluate? How do we find some new trigger points? And how do we make sure that we're top of mind while they're going through this phase? You see, people don't buy coaching or consulting when it's offered to them. They buy it when they have an urgent and specific need that they either A, cannot solve on their own, or B, they've determined it's going to be too time consuming or too expensive for them to solve. So basically it's cheaper to hire you to help with it than it is for them to try and figure it out on their own. And so when we recognize that we've got to get to this 7-11-4 rule, and that the way we buy has changed dramatically over the last 4 or 5 years, now we can understand where email kind of fits in with this. Going back to the same image I showed you before, there are only a very small percentage of people who are going to be ready to buy immediately after they sign up for your stuff or they first encounter you. And the problem is that most people and most of the clients or most of the people online who are trying to sell online are trying to make all of their money in the first 90 days, and they're neglecting all of the money that's behind that. And so email is the way for us to continue to engage, continue to stay top of mind for those folks. Does that make sense for everybody? Okay. Now, let's talk a little bit, going back to our money is in the list overview, and let's talk about the different types of email sequences that we're going to use. So at some point, so I'm going to assume that those of you who are watching this actually understand how to get a lead, that you create a lead magnet or you do something like this, and then you offer somebody a chance to come and get some more information. Or maybe you're just offering a direct low ticket product, maybe like a $7 product or $39 thing, and they come onto your email list. Well, once they come onto that, there are 4 different types of email sequences that we're going to use. The first one are what we call welcome sequences. And you'll also hear me refer to these as indoctrination sequences. I'm going to shorthand because my writing is terrible, but hopefully you guys get the picture. So we've got a welcome sequence. It's an email or series of emails that we're going to send them immediately after they sign up. That's hopefully going to try and either convert them into a buyer, or alternatively is to start building some sort of relationship with them, start indoctrinating them to our philosophies, our beliefs, so that we can gain some alignment from them. Okay? Now, the second ones are nurture sequences. And nurture sequences are what we're going to do in between when we're sort of making offers to them. And this is designed to draw the people who are on our list and to build credibility, authority, and trust with us. It's to show them our beliefs, our values, what we're about, why we do what we do. And it's sort of designed to nurture them and keep them excited about the idea of maybe one day working with us and to get some more information from us. The third one are what I call pre-framing sequences. And pre-framing, I'm going to show you some examples of this in a minute. Pre-framing sequences are used right before we start doing the fourth kind of sequence, which is a campaign. You may have heard this referred to as a launch campaign or a launch sequence. I don't do product launches. I think that's a horrible way to live your life if you're a coach, is on this roller coaster of feast and famine from one launch to the next. So what I do is when I'm getting ready, when I sell something, I do it typically in a campaign that runs 5 to 7 days. And what I will do in advance of that is I will pre-frame them through email to get them focused on the thing that I'm going to be selling in the future. So you can think about it like this. One of the cohorts that I run a couple of times a year is one called the Influential Writers Intensive. And basically, it's how do you write to influence people? Not to sell them, not to persuade them, but how do you write in order to gain alignment and to really create this deep bond of trust and relatability with your audience, right? So that when it comes time to sell, you don't need to do a lot of persuading because they're already convinced that you are the right person. They already have a high level of trust with you, and they don't have to, it's not going to take a lot of convincing for them. So if I knew that I was going to be selling my Influential Writers Intensive on a specific week, a couple of days before that, I will start to pre-frame. So I'll start creating some email content about writing and about communication. And there won't be anything to sell in there. I won't be promoting anything. It'll just be doing some teaching or maybe telling some stories about the value of becoming a good influential communicator. Okay. And then that pre-framing emails will then lead into the campaign that we're going to run. Okay. Now, let's go back to this welcome sequence up here and let's talk about the different types of emails that we might send inside of a welcome sequence, and then I'll show you one so you know what I'm talking about. So inside the welcome sequence, we typically have response emails. This is the first one that I would send. The second one is a value email. The third one is a pain email. And the fourth one is a benefit. And the easiest way for you to understand what I'm talking about is just to show it to you. So let me come in here and let me pull up my email sequence for you so that you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, everybody see this? All right. So this is based off of, I think I did this a long time for, I had a free lead magnet for the four core systems that you need to build into your business if you want it to run optimally, right? And so this email sequence was based on them having downloaded that PDF that walks them through the 4 different types of systems and how to build them, okay? And so the first email that we're going to send them is what some people would call a transactional email, but I want the email to do more than that. So instead of just saying, hey, here's your thing, here's your lead magnet, thanks so much for downloading it, you can go here and get the lead magnet at this link, I also want to do some things to improve the likelihood that my emails are going to get delivered. And so I reinforce right after this what I'm about and what they can expect from me. So I said, I'm here to do 2 things for you, help you build a fun, lean, and lucrative coaching business without the need for product launches, complicated tech funnels, or high-pressure marketing tactics. And number 2 is to show you how to build a digital reputation as a leader in your coaching category. And then I make a statement of alignment. I say in the end, business comes down to 2 things, marketing and sales, finding people who are interested in your product and convincing them to buy it. Put simply, every coaching business comes down to communication, and that's what I'm here to help you with, right? So I am right from the very beginning telling them what they can expect from me and what I think is important and what I value. And then I say, make sure you get my emails. Number 1, reply to this email and just write, I'm in. And number 2, if the email lands in your spam folder, please move it into your primary inbox. Doing this will ensure that my emails get delivered. Okay. Now, what I'm looking for, this is what I call a response email. So what I want is engagement, and a very small percentage of the people who will sign up for your email list will do this. But the ones that do are highly engaged, and we need to do some follow-up. And so to explain how this works, let me show you another one. So when you sign up for my newsletter, like I told you guys at the beginning of this, if you go into this at the bottom, if you really want to see how this works in practice, now you know kind of the theory and logic behind it, go sign up for my email list and then just watch the emails as they come out, and you'll start to recognize all of these things that are happening. But you'll see I have basically the same setup here. Thanks for subscribing to the newsletter. I'm here to do 2 things for you. Here is my, make sure you reply to this email. And then I have a little reminder in here that, hey, you're joining a daily email newsletter. I do not write for people with the attention span of a goldfish. And I do not write for people who don't intend to use what I share. I write for professionals. And again, this is an important influence tactic that I'm doing here that I teach a lot about. But basically what I want them to do is I want them to agree that they are a professional. And then if they agree that they are a professional, then they agree also that they don't have the attention span of a goldfish and that they do intend to use what I'm going to be sharing with them, right? And by simply writing this subconsciously for them to agree that I am a professional, they have to agree that it's okay for me to send them long emails. And then I reinforce down here at the bottom. So if you ever decide that that's not you, which who would do that, right? That's crazy. Of course I'm a professional. I've included a link at the bottom of every email where you can unsubscribe, okay? What I want is a response from them. I want them to respond and say, yeah, hey, I'm in. Now, if they do, great. I'm going to engage in a conversation with them. I'm actually going to personally respond to them and say, hey, great, thanks so much. By the way, how did you hear about me? Or where did you find me? Get a little data back. Or I might say something to the effect of, man, that's fantastic. Out of curiosity, what are you really struggling with right now? Because I may have some stuff that I can send you for free that'll help you with where you're at right now. And again, a small percentage of those people will respond. And the whole idea here is engaging conversation. Now, why is that important? Well, it's important for a couple of reasons. Number one is you get to figure out who are the hottest prospects on your list. Who are the people who are potentially in that 90-day window who we can convert really quickly, okay? And then the second thing that this does is it gives us something else, is it gives us the ability then to improve our deliverability. So not something like 99% of all emails that get sent out are one-way emails where they don't get any response back. That's the email marketers destroying everything. Okay, guys like us. When you get a response from somebody, when there is an exchange of information back and forth, Google immediately recognizes that, and the other email providers too, but Google is by far and away the biggest one. Google automatically recognizes that as being a valuable email that will go into the primary inbox. Okay, so I'm getting 2 for 1. I'm getting a guarantee that I'm going to go into the primary inbox, and I'm getting the chance to start a conversation with someone who may be a really hot prospect for me. Okay, now if I don't get any response from them on this, about 4 hours later, I'm going to send them what hopefully feels like a much more personal email. So everybody knows that this email, when they get this from after signing up for something, they're like, oh yeah, this is a canned email response, right? But I want to try and send them something a little bit more personal and continue to try and get that engagement. So about 4 hours later, I send them an email. And if you want to see how this works, just subscribe, right? Hey, I saw you sign up for my newsletter earlier today, and I just wanted to say thanks. I'm curious, do you run your coaching business full-time, or are you trying to scale it to that point? And again, what am I looking for here? I'm looking to try and figure out who is this person? What category, what bucket do I need to put them in? How do I need to be communicating with this person? Gives me a good idea of who's on my list and who's signing up. Of course, the majority of people are still trying to scale their business to full-time, but every once in a while I'll get somebody, I run a multi-million-dollar coaching business in XYZ space, and I saw your video and just really liked it and wanted to get on your list, whatever. The idea here is, again, it's all about response, okay? Now, what's the next type of email? Well, the next type of email I said was kind of a value email. So keeping in mind that this person who signed up for this is getting a PDF on the 4 core systems of their business, I'm going to assume a few things about them. Number one is that they're already a successful business owner, because you don't need systems for your business until you're already making money, okay? And number two is that they're at a point in the business where things are starting to break. And so the first email that I'm going to send them is going to be something of high value. And so this one, I'm not going to read it all to you, but I basically asked them, do you know who Ishaq Aziz is? And I said, don't feel bad if you don't. If I asked 1,000 small business owners, they wouldn't know who he is either. But I'll bet you know who Gary Vaynerchuk is, don't you? Ah, exactly. And then I come in and I give them a couple of links to books. So Ishaq wrote a fantastic book. It's not a real page turner, but if you really want to understand systems and how businesses cycle and grow, his book, Corporate Life Cycles, How and Why Corporations Grow and Die and What to Do About It, is best book I've ever read. And I contrast his book, which is fantastic, full of valuable information and strategy on how to grow businesses from basically zero to billion-dollar companies. I contrast that with Gary Vaynerchuk's book, Crush It. And the fact that Gary has sold, tons and tons of books. He's still I think he's still in the top 100 on Amazon, and for a book that was written in 2009. But Ishak's book is 1,528. And I talk a little bit about the value of Ishak, I think that's how you pronounce it. His consulting firm, it's been around for 40 years, and how Gary's latest thing was a way to fleece his followers out of about $90 million with his NFT deal that he was running, right? And I say in here, it's really important that those of us who are delivering real value, that we start taking a page out of that Gary V book, and we start doing a better job of marketing and communicating what we do. And I say something to the effect in here that, hey, what if instead of making his book, which was called Corporate Life Cycles, How and Why Corporations Grow, Die, and What to Do About It, and what if we rewrote it and we said, how about something like The One Percenters, How Great Companies Got That Way and Stay That Way, right? That's a lot catchier one, and that was just something I kind of came up with the top of my head. But the idea here is I'm going to do a couple of things in this email. Number one is that every one of my clients and every single person that I've ever met who really is doing great work looks at somebody who's providing superficial, generic, bad advice and says, why is this person doing everywhere and talking on every podcast when they're giving out bad advice or just absolutely worthless advice? And I'm still struggling. And so in a way, I'm playing on that emotion. And I want to show them that, hey, if you will modify the way you talk about what you do, you will significantly increase your presence, the number of sales you get, and the number of people who are coming to you. And you can grow your business the same way that they are, but instead, once somebody gives you money, they're actually going to get some value from you, okay? So that's what we would call a value email. And then email number 3 is our pain email. And so in this one, I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but basically there is a scene in Atlas Shrugged where Hank Reardon, who is the billionaire metal worker who came up with this new kind of steel called Reardon steel, comes home from work. And he comes in to find his family having a cocktail party with friends, and they say, hey, come on, have a drink with us. And he says, I can't, I've got to go work. I got to finish up some paperwork before I do anything. And his wife calls him a fuddy-duddy, and everybody kind of turns their nose up at him because, of course, he's a capitalist and they're a bunch of, egalitarians. And he goes into his office, and very shortly after that, his nephew comes in, who's this left-wing elitist college grad, going to college at some Ivy League institution. And he tells Hank that he needs to donate to this charity or to this cause that his nephew thinks is important. And without much pushback, Hank pulls out his checkbook and he says, how much money do you need? And his nephew says, oh, I'd prefer you don't write me a check because you're a capitalist and that wouldn't go very well in the circles that I run in. Can you just give me cash? And when I read that book, I was very young and poor when I read that book, but it stuck with me for years. And what happens is when people become really successful, people come out of the woodwork and just sort of expect that, oh, if we're going out to dinner, oh, Jason's going to pay for that because Jason's got tons of money. Or if we're going to go on vacation, or if there's some charity that I'm required to write a check because, oh, I've made a lot of money in my life, right? And there's this growing resentment from people who are very successful that they're being hit on all sides of people with an expectation of their time and their money. And how frustrating it is that they're doing all of this work and trying to be a good father and trying to be a good husband, and it just never feels like it's good enough. I'm never good enough. And so in this email, I'm trying to attach and reach the people who have that pain point, and I'm trying to stir up that pain. And again, the whole purpose behind this is alignment. How do we continue to build alignment, build trust and credibility? What I want is the reader saying, man, Jason really knows me. Like, he knows exactly what I'm going through right now. He knows the anxiety and the stress that I've got. And then I just talk to them in the balance of this email that your business doesn't have to become a prison, that you can be able to do all of the things that you want to do, and you don't have to be this fuddy-duddy who just does nothing but work all the time. And you also don't have to take that crap that other people give you, right? And so I'm just giving them a little bit of that. So that's kind of the pain email. And then in the benefit email, we talk here a little bit. I talk a little bit about how when I was younger, I thought, I'll sleep when I'm dead. That was kind of my philosophy from when I was in the military all the way until I basically burned out with my first business. And I kind of talk a little bit about the benefit of changing the way they structured their business. Okay. And I talk a little bit about who you are. If you're this kind of person, that there is a benefit to you getting my help. Because if we do some changes and we make some changes inside of the business, not only can you continue to grow and expand the business, but you're also going to free up your time so that you don't have to, you'll have time to sleep, you'll have time to relax, you'll have time to take a vacation, which a lot of entrepreneurs don't get to do. And so the benefit email is translating a problem that they are having into a benefit that working with me can offer. Okay. Does that make sense? Okay, so going back over here, if we take a look, the inside, now, so a welcome sequence can be one of two things. It can be what I showed you first, which is just like, hey, thanks for signing up for my newsletter. Here's what it is. And oh, by the way, will you tell me a little bit about yourself? Or it can be a series of emails, typically for response, value, pain, and benefit. Okay, questions on that? Anybody? Okay, and while you guys are potentially responding to that, because I know there's a bit of a delay, let me write out the other emails, the other sequences that we're going to talk about. So we've got nurture, and we've got sorry, I wrote this down because there's no way I would remember all this stuff on the fly. I'd get flustered. We've got the pre-frame, and we've got the campaign. Okay. And all of these emails that we're going to send for any one of these are going to be constructed of 4 basic types of emails. And this is what I teach in my personality-driven email training, as I teach people how to create and craft these sort of emails and how to layer them inside of their email marketing strategy. And when you do this correctly, you can email 5 to 7 times a week and not see a reduction in or an increase in the number of unsubscribe rates. As a matter of fact, in many cases, you will see response rates start to increase. So I was just on a call with a coaching client of mine. On last Wednesday, and we were talking about, we'd been working on their email marketing strategy. And I said, I want you to start increasing the number, because they're emailing like once a week. I said, I want you to start emailing to somewhere between 3 to 4 times a week. And of course, they were very nervous about that, but they trusted me. And we came back on our Wednesday session, and he said, something amazing has happened. He said, not only have our unsubscribes not increased at all, but we saw a lot of people who were on our email list who had just sort of like died. They were dead leads. They weren't opening our emails anymore. We started to see them opening more and more of our emails. They re-engaged dead leads that were on their email list. And they were excited about it. They didn't really understand why. But the reason that it works is because when you email once a week, it's easy for you to be forgotten about. When you start showing up every single day, a choice is made. A choice is made of, oh, this person now is being very communicative with me, and I'm either going to re-engage with that or I'm going to leave. And if people unsubscribe, that's fine. We don't care about unsubscribes. That just means I'm not ready now, or this is no longer important to me. It is not a reflection on you. It's not a reflection on the quality of the work that you do. It's just somebody saying, hey, I was interested in this before, but I'm not now. Or now's not the right time. I'll come back when it is. Okay. But the bigger issue, the bigger reason we see an uptick oftentimes in engagement when we increase the number of emails is because it has to do with a psychological principle that I forget the name of it, but every time someone sees you, they see your face, they hear your name, they see your name pop up anywhere, it increases trust. It doesn't make any rational sense, but it is 100% true. It will increase the natural trust that they have with you just because they've seen you more, right? And so the more we show up, the more often we show up, and the more ways we show up, right, in the different touch points, the faster we're going to move someone to a sale. Because what do we have to establish in order to generate a sale? Credibility, authority, and trust, right? All of those things have to be at a high level for them to make a decision to do business with us, okay? And so inside of these other 3 types of campaigns, I have 4 different types of emails that I send, okay? The first are bonding emails. The second are teaching. The third are sales, like direct sale emails. And then the fourth are what I call hybrid. And this one is the one that I do most of. Most of the time in every email I send, there will be some sort of bonding or teaching and sales or a combination of those, okay? And I'm going to show you some examples in a minute. But every one of these will be part of the strategy that we use. And this is what allows us to email so often and not lose them, is because the emails that we're sending are not all buy my stuff emails. We've all seen, it seems the bigger the company, the more they just want to send you, hey, save 20% on my thing, or hey, door's closing, buy our stuff now, right? Remember what I said really early on in this training. People don't buy coaching when it's offered. They buy it when they have a specific and urgent need, right? So our entire job in this is to stay top of mind, because the first time they encounter you, when they sign up for your email list or watch your YouTube video, they are not going to be a buyer. They're going to need to go through that exploration and evaluation stage. And our only job is to make sure that when they are narrowing that search, what we talked about here, when they're narrowing that search, that we continue to make the cut until we get to the final decision. Okay. So here's how this would typically go in my business. Let's go and pull up my calendar. And I have removed all the stuff off of it. But let's look at next month for May. Okay. May 1st starts on a Friday. Let's say I know I am going to want to sell something on the week of the 5th through the 9th. So I'm over that 5-day period, I'm going to sell, maybe it's a workshop, or maybe it's a come join the Influential Writers Intensive. I actually don't have anything to sell right now. I don't have anything on the books, but let's say I was going to sell something. Okay. Well, around the 28th or between the 28th and the 30th, what I'm probably going to do is just send some bonding emails. I'm just going to send some stuff that are fun, tell them some stories, something that's relatable to their lives, something that's friendly and helpful, right? And then starting on May 2nd, May 1st and 2nd, because I usually email 5 days a week, I'll do some pre-framing emails. So let's say the workshop is on how to create an authority brand. That's one of my most popular workshops, okay? So I'm going to start talking about the importance of branding and the importance of a personal brand and the difference between the way most people look at personal brands and what an authority brand is, because that's what we need as coaches and consultants. We need an authority brand. And so what are the differences between those two? And what are some of the things that you can do right now that are going to help you build a better authority brand? Okay. Now, I'm not pitching anything. I haven't told them about the offer. I haven't talked to them about it. But what I'm doing is I want the audience focused on branding, because next week I'm going to be talking about branding. Then the following week, the 5th through the 9th, I'm going to use some combination of some hybrid form. So they might be a bonding with an offer, it might be teaching with an offer, or just a direct sales message that I'm going to send them. And I run that for that week. And then the very next week, right? See, what most people will do is if they spend a whole week pitching product, what most internet marketing guys will tell you is, oh, you need to let the list rest. Have you heard this before? Oh, I need to rest the list. No, you don't. What you need to do is just stop selling them stuff. You need to stop hammering them with go buy my stuff, doors closed, and all of that garbage. So the very next week, I'll go right back to bonding emails. That'll have nothing to do with an offer. Might be just a fun story about when I was a kid and an obstacle I overcame and a way I came to a personal belief or a life lesson, and just really interesting stuff that people enjoy opening and reading. I have people on my list to this day who are not coaches or consultants. They don't own businesses, like nothing. And every time I send a bond, well, not every time, but when I send bonding emails, I will oftentimes get a response from somebody who will say something to the effect of, hey, I don't even own a business. I don't really plan on owning a business, but I stay on your email list because I just really love reading your emails. Like I like the stories and I like, the encouragement that you give me. And so I just wanted to say thank you, right? If you're not getting responses like that from people who are on your list, you're doing your email marketing wrong. And so I don't give the list a rest. I just go from a teaching or maybe like some sort of sales email to more bonding emails. All right. So let's flip back over and let's just take a look at a few. So here's an example of a bonding email. And keep in mind, actually, I don't know if this is pure bonding or if there's a sale at the bottom of this. No, there's not. This is just a pure bonding email. So this is one I sent out a while ago, and I track all of my stuff in Notion. So it's my dashboard. If you don't know what Notion is, go look it up. But Notion is incredible because all my emails go into the same database, and then I get the ability to tag them. And when you email every day, 5 days a week, that's like 200 and some odd emails a year. Okay. So after doing this for a few years, I have a treasure trove of stuff that I may not have talked about in the last year or the last 2 years. And so if I'm running short on things to talk about, or maybe I'm really busy one day and I don't have time to like craft an email fresh, I can go back in my archives and say, okay, 6 or 8 months ago, I sent this bonding email and got a really good response from it. Let me just send this one again. Because I got a ton of new people on my list 8 months, since then. And a whole bunch of new people are going to get to hear this story for the first time. Okay. So this bonding email, the subject line was creativity after 40. And I talk about being young. And keep in mind, my audience is typically older men. Not old, when I say older, 35 to 60, somewhere in there. Those are typically the type of clients that I work with. I don't work with the young hustle bros because they're still on this track of I'm going to build my empire, my $100 million company. And they haven't realized that that's not what they really want. And so the people who really resonate with me and my writing and what I do are people who want to build lifestyle businesses, coaching businesses, that borderless businesses, right? That give them agency over their lives, control over their time and their money, right? And so I talk about being young and idealistic, and about creativity in general, and how if you look at most of the people, the great creative people in the world, a lot of them did their very best work in their 20s and 30s. Many of them were dead after their 30s, but I give them some examples of people over the age of 40 that did really great things. And there are plenty of very creative people who started their work in their 20s and they're still doing it in their 70s, right? But the purpose of this email was just to say, hey man, I've been in kind of a creative rut. And I've been feeling like, man, and asking the question, man, am I just too old for this? I'm 46. I just turned 46. And maybe what do I need to do? Right. And this was a heartfelt email because it was something that I was personally struggling with. And at the end, I say something to the effect of, I've learned that, hey, if we want to continue to be creative, we have to continue to explore. We can't get set on our ways. We can't decide that we've learned it all and that we've figured it all out and there's nothing else of value and there's no more beauty left to be discovered in this life. And the only purpose of the email is just to connect with someone and say, you know what? I felt like that too. I feel like I have less energy now than I did when I was 20. I feel like I've produced all of this great work early on, and now I'm like struggling to find my new passion and my new project and that new creative outlet for me. And that was the only purpose of the email, is to create a bond with the reader. Let's take a look at another one. What jail taught me about human nature. I spent a lot of time in jails, not as an inmate, but as a sheriff's deputy working in the pods. That's what you call a room with all the cells in it. And so this is a story about a guy that I met when I was working as a sheriff's deputy in the jail who was a heroin addict, and how he would go into jail and he would spend a few months in there for possession, and then he would get clean, and he would come and he'd talk to me, and I would have lots of conversations with this guy about, hey, and he'd always say, I'm going to get my life cleaned up. When I get out of here, I'm never going back. You're never going to see me again, Deputy Stapleton. And I said, that's great, man. I really hope that that's the truth. And of course he would leave, and 6 months later he'd be back again. Same process would happen over and over again. And I ended up leaving the sheriff's department. I went to work overseas for a security contracting company because of my military background. And I was at a grocery store when I was home on leave for a little while, and I was just, doing my regular shopping, and I ended up running into him. He said, "Hey, Deputy Stapleton." And he was almost unrecognizable. Like, he had put on like 30 pounds. He looked super healthy. And I was just like, holy smokes, man. Like, how's it going? Things look really good. Like, you're looking great. He's like, it was great, man. I ended up like leaving town, and I went to live, I can't remember, his aunt or something like that. And I said, well, what are you doing back in town? And he said, well, I think he said my mom died. I had the story in here. I think his mom died, and he was in town for the funeral. And the moral of the story, or the principle that I brought forward at the end, is I hope he's still doing well. But even if he isn't, it proves that there's hope for everyone. No matter how bad someone seems, everyone has the potential to improve. The same is true for you. I don't care about where you've come from. I don't care how many times you failed. I don't care who you've hurt or who's hurt you. All of that is in the past. You can start new right now and create the life you want. All you have to do is decide and take the first step in a new direction. Happy Tuesday, right? Again, I want them to know I'm a real person. I want them to know that I care about them. I want them to know that when they get something from me, it's going to be truthful and helpful. Again, building that trust, building that connective tissue, so that when the time comes and they need to make a decision, when they hit that trigger point that we talked about at the beginning of this, they go, I don't even need to look. Like, Jason's my guy. Let me go to him. That's what I want, and that's why we can continue to mail. Okay. Now let's take a look at a couple of teaching emails. This is one I sent out really recently. It's called the 6-second story formula. And it's just about how do you tell a story in 6 seconds. And I won't read it to you, but this is the formula. I was here doing this. When this happened, suddenly I realized, so I did this. And then I give them a couple of examples. Here's how you might be able to use this story. And now I say, go out and try it. Give it a try in the next conversation you have, or give it a try in the next video that you do for YouTube, right? And the idea is just give them some value. Again, there's no offer in here. I'm not trying to sell them anything. I'm just giving them something that's really going to be helpful for them. Now, I could very easily tack on an offer to the bottom of this, or I could say, hey, if you really like this email and you'd like some help with me in improving your marketing and your communication, let's go schedule a time to talk. Just subscribe at the bottom here, or here's my calendar link, right? So we can very easily tack some sort of offer on and make this a hybrid email, but I just wanted to show you kind of a pure teaching email. Now, let me ask you this. If this was the type of content that you were producing consistently for your audience, do you think that would have a positive impact on your bottom line? Do you think that if this was the type of content that someone was sending you consistently every single day, that it would be an email that you would want to open and read, even if you just skimmed it? Do you think that it would be when you saw their name in your inbox that it would be something you would say, hey, I don't have time to read this now, but I'm definitely going to go look at that later, right? Of course it would. It works so much better than any other email marketing strategy that I've ever tried, okay? And what it does is going back to our long tail, it's keeping those folks engaged for as long as it takes until they are ready to make the decision that we ultimately want them to make, right? Okay. Here's another one, the 4 questions. So this is where I talk about the 4 questions that you need to ask if you're kind of starting your coaching business. And I broke this up into 2 emails. The first one was just what market do you serve? And then I give them some examples. And then I say, how do you want to serve them? And we talk a little bit more about that. And then I say, hey, keep an eye out in your inbox tomorrow. I'm going to send you the other 2. And that was just to keep this email from being like just too long to read, right? I'm not opposed to writing very long emails. I think a lot of people will tell you, oh, a lot of people will say those emails are way too long. You need to keep them short and pithy. The way I respond to that is the same way I respond when somebody says, how long should your sales letter be? Okay. It needs to be as long as it needs to be. There's no such thing as a sales letter that's too long, right? There's no such thing as a book that's too long. There's only a book that's boring, right? It can be too boring. Same thing for your sales letters, same thing for your email communication. There's no such thing as too long of an email, because you know who reads long emails? Buyers. People who are going to give you a lot of money and who are working towards that 7-Eleven 4 and who are serious about going through that evaluation and exploration phase. Those people give you lots of money. And they are the ones who do deep dives. They are the ones who read your 21-page sales letter and watch your hour-and-a-half long VSL, video sales letter, before they buy from you, okay? And so, as I said before when I showed you the first email, I don't write for people who have the attention span of a goldfish. I write for professionals. What I'm really saying is I write for people who will spend big money with me when the time is right, okay? And so the last one I want to show you, and then I'll open it up for questions. So if you have questions about any of this, throw it into the chat right now so that as I'm finishing up here, you guys, I can answer any questions that you might have, because we are just about done here. The last one is just a sales email. And a sales email is exactly what it sounds like. I'm going to try and sell them something, and that's the only purpose for the email. And this is one I send out frequently, your invitation to join Leverage Coach. In this case, I was just telling them I was going to increase the price by $3,600 a year. And then I tell them, if you want to join, now's a pretty good time. Here's what we're going to do together. Here's how we're going to do it. Here's all the rest. I basically take the sales letter that I send them, the Google Doc that I send them, and I just put it into an email. And I tell them exactly all the steps, everything they need to know to make a buying decision. And then I tell them what the investment is. And then boom, at the end, I say, just email me. Don't send me any money. Just email me. I'm ready. We'll set up a quick 15-minute call to make sure you're a good fit. And then we'll get you enrolled and get your kickoff call scheduled, right? So there's no story in here. There's no teaching. I'm like, today I'm going to try and sell you something. I very rarely send pure sales emails. Normally the ones that I do send are ones like this, or if I do have like a workshop and the workshop is, I'm closing the doors because I have to, let's say the workshop's on a Wednesday and I know that I have to close enrollment for the workshop like at Tuesday at midnight. I'll send an email out on Tuesday and just say, hey, I know a lot of y'all are waiting until the last minute, but this is it. You need to sign up for the workshop by this time because I got to teach it tomorrow and I'm going to close out enrollment, right? So there's a logical justification for why I'm emailing them. But that also I would consider to be a sales email. And those are usually very short. Just like, hey, you've already heard about this. I've been emailing you about it for a week. But if you just needed that one last push, here's that email. And truth is that email is massively important. Those last chance emails before you close out enrollment or, before things fill up, can account for as much as 20 or 30% of your sales. The way people buy now is not how they bought 16 years ago when I got in the business. When I got in the business, you could get people lined up at the door. Like literally, waiting to buy. And I could say at 7 a.m., I'm going to send an email for the link, and this is the only, and the enrollment will be open and it'll close at X date. And you'll literally just sit in the office and watch the orders roll in. It was a wonderful feeling back then. Today, it's a little bit different. Today, what we see is you send out the initial email and you might get about 10 to 15% of your sales. And then a few more will trickle in over the next few days while you're running the promotion. And then about 50% of the sales will come in the final day. For some reason, people just don't have the motivation. And there's a lot of reasons for that I won't get into today, but that's it. That's the email strategy. So again, just going back over this, we've got the 7-11-4 rule. Remember how people buy today. And then remember, we've got several different kinds we've got welcome sequences, nurture sequences, pre-framing, and campaigns. And then we've got the 4 different types of emails: bonding, teaching, sales, and hybrid. Okay. And if you'll do that and you'll follow this process, you can email every single week. I typically run 2 campaigns a month. So I do a week of bonding and teaching. Then I do a week of hybrid sales emails, then another week of bonding and teaching, and then another week of sales, right? And it's enough that I can maximize the value of the list without burning them out, because there's enough really quality content and value content in there that they want to keep reading, even if they don't want to buy, right? And remember, at the end of the day, we just want to create connection. We're just trying to build relationship. Okay. All right, y'all. Well, I really appreciate you being here. I appreciate you spending your time with me. And if you like this, give it a like. Hit that little bell icon so you get notified every single time I put out a video. And I'll be back with more great stuff in the very near future. Until then, be safe, be good, and we'll talk to you then.